Well, we do have an update when it comes to conference realignment rumors. Take a little look-see at this. Nice little graphic that was made. I just think this was made randomly by a fan. So I kind of traced it back to this account. You can see rumors are swirling about a possible big announcement on 10/10. You can see, I'll tell you, it's a nice graphic. They've got the whole Big Ten thing, combined with October 10th. Possibly Clemson going to the Big Ten on October 10th. I think this was just honestly completely made up. I mean, I don't know where the rumors are that this could happen on October 10th, 10/10, but I'll give them credit. It's a nice graphic. There's no doubt about it. Now, guys, I still maintain the opinion that Clemson and FSU have to be ticketed to the SEC. It makes too much sense. There's no way the SEC would allow the Big Ten to take Clemson and especially FSU. Think about the upside of FSU and where the Big Ten is already going to be at. Adding a USC team with Lincoln Riley, who always gets a Heisman-level quarterback, a very solid Washington team. Yes, they've had down years. Yes, they don't recruit great, but they're still really solid. They're probably going to be down next year because they're going to lose a lot, but we know how great Washington is this year. UCLA looks like they're on the come up with a superstar true freshman QB and Chip Kelly, who's really turned things around there. And then, of course, Oregon with their Nike money, giving Bo Nix probably a nice NIL deal to stay there for his senior year, and they're a top 10 team. You're the Big Ten, and you're already adding those teams, and you're also going to get Clemson. And even if you want to say Clemson is trending down, they already have 2 losses. They haven't made the playoff in like 3 years. I'll agree with that. They're still a really solid team, and they're top 10 in recruiting virtually every year. And then the upside in FSU, could you imagine? I mean, with Florida State, you have to think about the idea. I know Mike Norvell's doing very well right now, but imagine, Deion Sanders, if he coaches well at Colorado the next few years, he could take over at Florida State, and they would have just the recruiting, a massive recruiting advantage in terms of that. So I don't think this is a situation where we're going to see the SEC lose out on both Clemson and FSU. It just doesn't make any logical sense. And then you also have the whole idea with ESPN having the rights. The SEC would be helped by ESPN really facilitating a move from both Clemson and FSU to the SEC. The big wild card here, can both Clemson and FSU get like a clean break from the ACC to where they could go wherever they want, or does it need to be facilitated because of the grant of rights? Would it include some type of buyout? Obviously, if they just wanted to leave like right now, the buyout would be so ridiculous it wouldn't be worth it. The idea is maybe that could be negotiated down. If Clemson and FSU say, we want more money, we will, you talk to ESPN and say, we will go to the SEC so you'll keep our rights, but we want more money so we need to leave this. Let's lower the buyout significantly. Maybe ESPN would agree to something like that in exchange for more conference games, the SEC going to a 9 or a 10 game conference schedule. That's another thing working against the Big Ten in possibly trying to get Florida State and Clemson. And guys, absolutely, if you're the Big Ten, getting Florida State and Clemson, they're trying to be a true coast-to-coast conference, and they really already are, but they just don't have anyone from the South. So think about that. Florida State and Clemson, that's pretty much all you need, and you've got the number 1 premier conference in college football. There is no debating it. I mean, the SEC would still have Texas, Oklahoma, all those teams, Alabama, I get it, but the Big Ten would just become an absolute, they would have to be the 1A conference in college football, and I don't see the SEC allowing that to happen, especially with the SEC being obsessed with staying in their footprint. They really haven't deviated. You can say, well, Oklahoma, Texas, that's really not that far out. It's not like they're going out west to get teams. I feel like FSU and Clemson are just such great profile fits for the SEC, and let's be honest, they're more SEC-type teams. I guess you could argue maybe Clemson would be more of a Big Ten team, but either way, we do have some stuff. Clemson is likely to announce their departure from the ACC in October. That's what this person was told a few minutes ago. Are they, do they have any sources? I think this account has had some good stuff, especially over the summer when it comes to rumors. I'm not going to say they're a true insider, but you can see that. Big Ten rumors, flight data. Listen, we've reached a new low, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of conference realignment. We've got the flight data. We remember when coaches take flights, private jets, possibly being hired by someone, they always show the flight data, but you can see showing a private plane flew into Clemson from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Previous flights on this plane included arrivals and departures from Ohio State. So I'm sure, you have both ACC teams talking to both the Big Ten and the SEC, if anything, for negotiation leverage between the two conferences to get the best deal possible, get into the league, and make as much money as soon as possible, because we know normally with how these things work, when you join a league, you're not getting 100% of the TV deal. You start at like 50%, and then, as the years go by, it goes up, and then eventually you make it's the same thing that happened to Maryland and Rutgers. It's the same thing that happened to Stanford, Cal, and SMU. I posted a couple months ago or so that an ACC school hired a law firm. It was Clemson, and they are going to court, and the meetings are in early October. So that might be why this is happening in October. Very strange timing if it does happen in October. Certainly we would like all of this realignment and expansion to happen during the offseason, because it just kind of puts a cloud over the season, or at least the teams that are involved. It's like, what do you do now? It's just a strange thing. So kind of a weird timing in terms of that. And then here's a little article. While most Clemson administrators and fans prefer a move to the SEC, the Big Ten is a possibility. The process perhaps unfolding might go like this. The Big Ten gets serious about adding a southern tier led by North Carolina, the top non-Notre Dame prize for both the Big Ten and the SEC. Wow, that's pretty crazy. North Carolina is the top prize, I guess, because of their basketball program, academics, and also they do have an improving football program. I mean, they just had Sam Howell, who's a starting quarterback right now in the NFL, and then Drake May is going to be a top 5 pick, probably a top 2 pick. So North Carolina, if they're actually wanted more than FSU and Clemson, that's great news for them. North Carolina, to me, feels like more of a Big Ten team than an SEC team. That's just my opinion. Maybe that would be an idea for the Big Ten to go after North Carolina and someone else. And you could say, and also including Clemson and FSU with perhaps Georgia Tech and Miami. Yeah, so Georgia Tech and Miami would probably be the next tier, and people would be a little bit surprised. Why would Georgia Tech, with how, down their basketball program's been, how down their football program's been? It's just the Atlanta market. They want the Atlanta TV market. The SEC counters, possibly wanting Notre Dame primarily, and seeking to block such a major Big Ten or Big 12 move in its footprint. That's interesting. They included Big 12, the Big 12 going after North Carolina. I cannot see that happening. While SEC officials this week, again, declined to talk about specific schools, Greg Sankey was to the point in his annual SEC Media Days addressing while in Atlanta in July of 2022. He said they're currently happy with. Yeah, so I mean, obviously they're going to say, they're not going to say we're actively looking to expand if you're the SEC. That doesn't make, especially in 2022. But at this point, I would imagine, I mean, if that quote is from 2022, obviously things have changed significantly with the Big Ten, getting more teams and now having more teams in their conference than the SEC, really making a play at possibly the 1A conference in college football. We will see. If I had to predict, I would say Clemson, FSU, they'd both go to the SEC. I would think that North Carolina probably goes to the Big Ten just based off of vibe on overall teams. It feels like North Carolina is more of a Big Ten team, but listen, they could very easily go to the SEC. It just depends. North Carolina's got, obviously a blue blood powerhouse basketball program, and their football program is improving, and they've got great academics. So certainly that's an interesting thought that maybe North Carolina would be wanted more than both FSU and Clemson. Again, it just depends. Can FSU and Clemson get a clean break, meaning, whether Clemson goes to court, if they can somehow get out of this grant of rights deal to where there's no buyout, there's nothing, then that puts the Big Ten in play, because there's nothing hanging over Clemson to where it's not like ESPN has a bargaining chip. They can say, we'll lower, the cost to leave. the ACC with the TV deal and the buyout if you go to the SEC, because we still want to retain your rights. If they get a clean break and they don't have to worry about anything through the legal system, then you're looking at Clemson possibly going to the Big Ten. They would do whatever is best for their university, and both, obviously, the Big Ten and the SEC have really good TV deals at this point. I believe the Big Ten renegotiated their TV deal, and it's a little bit better than the SEC's, but there's both, 30, 40 million better per year. It's crazy. It's that ridiculous. Then the ACC, and the dreaded ACC deal runs through 2036, as opposed to the Big Ten and the SEC going back to the negotiating table well before 2036. I do think, if I had to project based on inflation, based on how these TV deals are working, both the Big Ten and the SEC in the year 2033, 2034, when they've got their new TV deals negotiated, they're probably going to be making $60 million more per year per school than the ACC. That's how horrible the ACC's TV deal is. The Big Ten and the SEC negotiated after the ACC's TV deal, and it ends before. So it's really a double whammy. It'd be different if the ACC, if this horrible deal ended in 2027 or 2028. You can work with that, but it ends a decade after, so that is the big issue when it comes to this, and there's just no way that, there's going to have to be something that gets done, and that's what I said over the summer. Something is going to have to give. There is no way that Clemson and FSU and some of these other teams in the ACC are going to stand for making that little money in comparison to teams in other conferences, especially the SEC and the Big Ten. And the other really sad thing is, even if you did unequal revenue sharing, it still wouldn't even be close. So it's like there's just not enough money in the TV deal to really make it work unless they completely renegotiated it. And this is interesting. They're talking about possibly, I think that article that I was reading was from before the ACC stabilizing itself, adding Stanford, Cal, and SMU. But guys, make no mistake. We all looked at that Stanford, Cal, SMU move. That was a desperation move. The ACC realizes, some of these teams are leaving, and we need to already have replacements ready to go and be proactive, unlike the Pac-12, and make sure we have teams to, counter what's about to happen to our conference, because we are taking on water. We are probably going to lose these teams, and that move probably should have been a dead giveaway to us that this grant of rights, it's not ironclad. They know it's not ironclad. This can possibly be argued in court, or they can get their buyout down if ESPN wants them in the SEC. So either way, we will have to see what happens here. The whole idea of it happening on October 10th, it's a nice graphic, but who knows, dude? It's just all random rumors. Either way, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.